Welcome, everyone. This is the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Here we chat about all things boating with marine industry professionals and enthusiasts who spend all the time they can out on the water.
Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. I'm back with part 2 of my conversation with Tommie Robinson, so if you missed part 1, go back and check it out. Just to remind our listeners, Tommie is a tournament bass angler with over 25 years of experience. He has qualified for several regional events throughout his years in the tournament circuit. He's participated in tournaments such as the FLW Tour, Bassmaster Opens, FLW Series, and the Michigan and Mississippi BFL. The second part of our conversation continues with a bit more insight as to how his experience as a fisheries research technician informs his strategies as an angler. We also talked about his boat, advice for new anglers, and some of his favorite places to fish.
That's so interesting. I think, that experience working for the fishery is so interesting and so unique. I mean, I think a lot of anglers mostly learn, research, internet research, reading articles and talking to other anglers. And I'm sure you do all those things too, but
I do it all.
To having that, day in and day out kind of scientific perspective on this and the sport is really interesting.
Yes. And let me share something. Working in the fishing industry or fisheries research is not a given that you can catch fish. But there are little things that you learn and such as a myth that you shouldn't make noise when you're fishing. And the way I learned that it's not important to really make noise, or if you go into a brush top with your trolling motor, it's not going to run the fish off, because we would literally, do you know what a shocking boat looks like? It's usually a aluminum boat that has long probes on it and tentacles that stick in the water. And there's a generator on the boat that puts out the electricity. We would run that boat into brush tops, and then we would flick the switch to let the electricity in the water. The fish wouldn't run away. The brush top would be full of fish. You think if you run and disturb a brush top, that the fish is going to just automatically swim away. And that's not the case. They're not as leery as you think. Now, there are exceptions to that, and that's during the spawn. Spawning fish is usually shallow and usually, in most cases, clear. And those fish can see you, and they are aware that you're there and are leery. But the whole making noise thing is more of a myth than it is true.
Yeah, it's an interesting evolutionary thing, right? I mean, fish spawning, they're more vulnerable, and what they're trying to do is important to the continuation of their species, right? I mean, so
yes.
So I think this whole don't make noise thing, now I'm looking back on my childhood, my dad telling me a million times, stop squirming around, stop making noise, you're scaring the fish off. I think it was just a ploy to get me to sit down and be quiet so he could have some peace.
Yes. So he can concentrate on catching them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the good thing is that he took you.
That's correct. I fished a lot as a kid and still not as often as I'd like to today, but still occasionally. So it's a lot of fun.
And I have 2 girls, and of course they're grown now, but I had them in the boat with me when I fished, and they fished right along. Back then, I also had a big event with kids fishing, and I took them along to participate in that as well.
I brought this up before in a episode I recorded a couple of months ago, but my claim to fishing fame is I won a couple of bluegill tournaments as a kid. So not quite at your level, but it's something. We all have to take what we can get.
It's all exciting, and I come up with take a kid fishing and get them hooked on fishing and not on drugs. And I participated in my kids' school program with that. So, and the way I look at it too is, if you take the kids fishing while they're young, when they get older, they may veer off and do other things. But if they get to a point to where they feel lost, and they usually reflect back to things that they enjoyed when they were kids, whether it was fishing or baseball or whatever. So if you instill it in them when they're young, they have something to fall back on.
That's right. And if nothing else, just the love of being outside. I mean, like I said, I don't fish as much as I'd like to today in my life today, but I love being outside and kind of figure out how to be outside as much as I can and do different things. So that's good for you, right? I mean, we all spend too much time cooped up.
That's right. Most of the jobs I've had were outside jobs. Even my sales job, it was outside sales.
Yeah.
I like being outside.
Yeah. I do too, although my career has been inside. So I have to kind of just get out whenever I can.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you really love about tournament fishing? I mean, I'm sure doing well and the success of doing well, but there's got to be more to it than that, because there's plenty of frustrating days out there, I'm sure.
Yes, but it is, it is what's new, what's there, what's under that stump. How can I make that fish bite? Those are things that keep me motivated. But also, I'm competitive, and measuring up to the other guys is everyone wants to know how they measure up to other people in their field, in sales or whatever it is. So that keeps me motivated, and I just love being outside. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care. That's where I want to be, is outside. But I'm always looking to see a new lake. A lot of people tell me, say, "Man, you going to that concert in Alabama?" And I always ask them, "Is there a tournament there?" So that's how strongly I feel about it.
Well, I know the PartsVu audience, and they are going to want to know about your boat and your engine. So what kind of boat are you running currently, and what engine do you have?
Well, currently I run a Ranger Z520. Mm-hmm. I have recently become a member of the Mercury Pro staff.
Excellent.
I currently run a competitor's engine right now, because during this COVID crisis, it's been kind of tough to get an engine. So hopefully soon I'll be running a Mercury.
Fantastic.
I have run Ranger boats my entire career. I'm not saying I would never run another boat, but that's the boat I started out with, and in the early days, it was the best boat out there. I think they all are good right now.
What do you like about Rangers?
Well, the biggest reason I stuck with Ranger is the way it fishes, not whether it goes fast or anything like that. I grew up on a lake that had a lot of stumps on it. And Ranger boats, when they sit in the water, they sit flat. And when they come to a stump, they either nudge it and nudge around it, or they slide right over it. where most other boats is more straight up V shape at the bottom. And by the time they realize they're on a stump, it's the middle ways of the boat. And you'll see when people get on this stump, the boat does this.
Oh,
And it's kind of tough getting off it.
Stuck,
Now, I'm not saying that a Ranger never comes across a stump and you need to crank up and get off of it. But it's the way it fish in shallow, stumpy water is the reason why I have always enjoyed fishing out of a Ranger. And the fact that you just, when you run in rough water, you just don't have problems with the boat coming apart.
From what I understand, a lot of bass tournament anglers have Mercury 250 Pro XSs. XS, that's always a tongue twister to me. Is that what the engine you're hoping to get or something else? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
The Mercury Pro XS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I currently run a Yamaha 250 right now. But I have become very fond of the Mercury engines and how Mercury take care of their people.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I am moving over to Mercury.
I'm like Switzerland, so I have to love them both, which I do equally, and I will, go to my grave with that statement. So,
yes.
We're
and my Yamaha has ran great. Speaking of engines, it's been a while, but I am a certified outboard motor mechanic.
Yes.
Of course, I was trained as a Johnson Evinrude, which is no longer around, but all the basics are there. I keep my own engine running for the most part. Some things I, may need to take it into someone else who I use is Mootsy Sports is where I take it. But, a lot of times you need special tools and things of that nature that I may not have, or special equipment to, you may need to remove the engine or whatever. But most things I do myself. And as a fisherman or a boater, I advise most people to learn their engines and do most of their maintenance themselves, because getting caught out on the water and not knowing what to do, or don't have a tool to do it, or just as simple as your boat has to stay in the shop for 2 or 3 weeks,
That's right.
But if you would, learn how to diagnose your problem, get your parts from PartsVu. They have everything from Mercury and Yamaha, from hubs to cleaning equipment. So learn how to work on your own engine, or at least do the maintenance on it, so that you don't get caught in some of those situations. So the Yamaha I have has been kept up very well, and it runs great now.
That's great. Yeah. No, I fully agree. I mean, that the basic maintenance, oil changes, gear lube changes, that kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff is easy to do, right? I mean, I think the biggest problem people have is not ordering the correct parts, or realizing they don't have an O-ring, and so we sell a lot of oil change kits and maintenance kits that come with all the stuff you need, and people aren't missing those little items that they might have forgotten, and then they have to delay the job.
And it's important too to deal with someone who has those things like PartsVu and is knowledgeable about what they have, and have parts for different items. I mean, because otherwise you have to call here to get this part, and you have to call there to get that part.
That's right.
And over there to get that part.
That's right.
When you guys have them have most of it right there.
That's right. It's confusing. I mean, a lot of times Mercury is especially like Mercury is, you really have to know your serial number they classify everything by serial number ranges. So it's easy to buy the wrong thing if you don't really know what you're doing. So we help people out with that a lot. Yeah. So have you found that, these engines today are so computerized. I mean, it's incredible, the technology that, they track all the hours and, the operating conditions and all this stuff. I mean, has that added complexity to be able to maintain your own engine? I mean, not so much with like the routine kind of things, but more advanced sorts of jobs. Is that a problem?
Well, you don't, most of the new engines now, you don't have to mix oil and gas. So that's a
helpful.
big deal.
Yeah.
You don't have to purchase the extra oil.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, a lot of things are computerized, but you still have basic things.
Yeah.
That doesn't interfere with you working on your own. I mean, water pump is a water pump.
That's right.
Yeah. You can change your own water pump.
That's right.
You don't need a computer for that.
Nope.
Now if you are advanced enough about sink and link, as long as you know where they should be, sink and link is sink and link. So, but yeah, when you get up to knowing exactly where the top dead center is and things like that, you may want to take it in. But in most cases, you can still work on your own engine.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if it's under warranty, I highly suggest you take it in as well.
Yeah. Although, and we get this question all the time, routine maintenance kinds of things, doing it yourself does not impact the warranty. People ask that a lot actually, and for understandable reasons. Yeah.
It's best to keep a record, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely keep a record, for sure. So, what advice, just to turn back to fishing for a minute, tournament fishing, people that I like to ask professional anglers this question, if some listeners out there are interested in getting started tournament fishing, what would you recommend? How would you recommend they get started?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, for sure, is always time on the water. Nothing beats repetitiveness and personal experience. The other thing is, of course, if you were coming up and wanted to be a professional angler now, it would not be smart for you to leave school, because you have high school fishing, college fishing, and all of those things pave a way to being on the big leagues. They're also recruiting now from colleges.
Incredible.
So it pays to continue your education. The other thing is don't just go to school. If you want to be a professional angler, you need to major in marketing. That is going to be your strongest tool. Is marketing.
That is not what I expected, but you're absolutely right.
Yes. And here's another thing. It don't matter what job you're on. There's always a place for some creative person that has the ability to present products in a manner that's going to generate sales.
That's right.
And marketing gives you that.
It's been interesting getting to know you, and we sponsor Garrett Paquette, and getting kind of just behind the scenes of pro fishing. It's been interesting. I mean, I think all like athletics are like this. I mean, you have to communicate with your sponsors, be likable to your fans so that your sponsors want to sponsor you. And it's just really interesting. It's fascinating. On top of being able to catch a fish,
yes. Yeah, you know, in my past sales experience, I sold cable, internet, and TV for a major telecommunications company. I wasn't selling TV and internet.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Because if people don't like you, they won't buy from you.
That's right.
So the same thing with looking for sponsors. If they don't like you, they're not going to deal with you.
No.
If, you know, so always be a approachable person.
That's right.
You know, some people aren't approachable, but you have to be approachable.
I think fans, I mean, certainly some fans follow some athletes that are not maybe the nicest people in the world, but they're great at what they do. I mean, but for the most part, I think your fans need to like you, right? I mean, it's...
Let me tell you something. Kids are fans too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're standing in a crowd and if you're well known, those kids are going to let you know what kind of person you are.
That's right.
Kids are kind of the quickest at knowing your personality, or if you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to be aware of that. I mean, you know, and when you're out there, being successful fishing is great, but I also want to portray a good image for the people that I'm representing.
That's right. That's right. So I'd like to just close by asking you where some of your favorite places to fish are. I know you're all over the country, but you got to have a couple favorites in there.
Well, they all are good. Some I don't care to go back to, and I won't mention those. If I didn't say that Lake St. Clair isn't one of my favorite places to be, I don't think anyone can say that Lake St. Clair isn't a favorite place. It's located here in between two Great Lakes, Lake Huron and Lake Erie.
Yep.
In Michigan. But outside of that, I'm very fond of Lake Okeechobee. I'm very fond of Gunnersville. Very fond of Texas lakes like Sam Raven and Toledo Bend.
Fantastic. Good.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for being here with me today. I encourage all of our listeners to follow Tommie on his website, Instagram, and Facebook, and I've included all those links, information in the show notes. So follow him there. And thanks again, Tommie. It was really great talking with you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And if I would leave with anything is I would like for all my friends, family, and followers to visit PartsVu.
Yeah.
Check them out. They may have something for you.
That's right.
May make your life in boating a little easier.
Well, thank you so much.
So thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you thinking about upgrading your boat's navigation? Or are you interested in the latest marine technology? Check out our wide selection of GPS navigation and fish finder units from leading marine brands like Garmin, Humminbird, Ray Marine, and more at PartsVu.com. Use the coupon code PVTalksNav for 5% off your order, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Xchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.